All right, so you guys are gonna have to set up a work area, and I've intentionally put this into my house so that you can see what it would be like to actually have to deal with huskies in your work studio. So I have a coffee table, and we're going to set up a still life here, and we're going to light the still life, and then I'm going to show you how you should probably set up to do the actual drawing, okay? So this is a regular, coffee table like most people have. It's got a glass top, which a lot of people have. Glass top isn't conducive to what we're doing, so we want to cover it with something. It just so happened my daughter had got new curtains, so there's a brand new, or an old curtain that we could just place right on top, and that makes a good, nice, neutral surface. And then we're going to place our objects on top of that. So I've got an object over here, and an object over here. So I have a nice little still life set up, and then I've got my son's shop light type deal to set up to light this thing. Now, normally I'd be using probably natural light coming in from the window, but some of you might not have that option because maybe you're going to be working at night or something, or you don't have a window. You live in a little cave, so this is going to be a good option. You don't want to use regular lights with shades on them, because you'd have to take the shade off if you're going to use something like that, like a lamp. So you want to have a fairly bright, direct light. And then you can see what that's doing for the still life. We have light on one side and shadow on the other side. Okay, so that's what we're going to want to see anytime we set anything up. Usually we're going to be using volumetric objects like this, so things that have got some form to them. They don't have to be this fancy. This was a ceramic pot that was actually a student work, I believe. This too, I think. Not my students, because I don't teach ceramics, but things like this, things like natural objects are going to be good, but anything that's going to be dimensional or volumetric, not flat objects generally, for any kind of still life setup. And you're going to see, when you set up a still life, you're going to have to submit it to me anyway and get my approval on it, and I'll let you know if there's a problem with the lighting or how many objects you have or where you place them, okay? One of the things I was noticing in the other class when they were setting up their own still lifes is that they would sometimes do things like this, where they line the objects up, along a horizontal axis. You don't ever want to do that. You want to have, things in front of other things. It helps to get the illusion of space. So what we're going to do for the actual drawing, where we're going to be sitting for the drawing, I've got two chairs set up, two dining room chairs, and normally what I would do is I'd be using an easel like that, but I figured most of you are not going to have an easel, so this is something that will work just fine. You have two dining room chairs, you have your still life in front of you, and you have your board. With the materials that we went through, I didn't talk about the drawing board, but you're going to have a drawing board for this reason. You can't work on a flat surface like that because you're going to get distortion. So you have to be able to see the paper upright like this. It could be like this, but you don't want it to be laying flat. Okay, so this is going to be a good situation as far as drawing goes, to be set up on something like this. But if you have an easel, obviously I'd be using the easel. The easel has the advantage of being adjustable. It can go up and down, back and forth. And this one is not. This was actually one I had from my youth, I believe. I had this when I was, 18 or something. So it's still good. It's a little bit rickety, but you do what you do. So yeah, that's going to be our setup for a lot of our drawings. Now, some of our drawings are going to be not necessarily observational drawings where we have to set up a still life. We might be doing something more abstract. That would be a different work situation. The other thing you have to be aware of is if you live with other people, and you have to move your still life, it's always got to be set up exactly the same way every time. So one of the things that I do is I trace, with a piece of chalk where the objects were, and also the cast shadows, so that I'll know exactly how it was lit and where the objects were placed. This was something that came up in the other class too, where they would set it up different every time, and I would have to, judge what they were doing based on the photograph of the setup they gave me, and then after they rearrange the objects, I can't really help them as far as proportion and placement of things. So you can't move the still life around in a bunch of different ways. Okay, it's got to stay the same every single time you draw. Of course, you could do the whole drawing in one sitting, but I wouldn't recommend that. A lot of the drawings that we're going to be doing are going to take, 3 or 4 days, maybe 2 or 3 days to do. So unless if you live by yourself, it's not an issue. But if you're living with other people, you just need to make sure that you understand that every time it's got to be set up exactly the same way, and you've got to be in the same place every time in relation to the still life. Okay, so that's going to be important. Is there anything else I need to tell you about that? I don't think so. So that's what we're going to be doing as far as the first, I would say, we're going to have a charcoal drawing and the pastel observational drawing. So both of those would be a setup like what you see here. Okay? Okay.